Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we have a up-and-comer that if people have been watching the competition scene around Australia will probably recognise this guy and recognise his name. He has been tearing it up on the competition scene for the last couple of years. He's a brown belt at Rise MMA. He's done a heap of competitions both here in Australia and around the world. He is Sefokuli. Thanks for joining us, Sefo.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Great to have you on, mate. I was lucky enough, Kim, when Link and Ivan were traveling overseas for the Worlds, that Sefo came in and coached us for the lunch classes. And it's kind of I've hung out with Sefo at Dominance a few times and sort of paired up and trained a little bit, but definitely the first time being coached by Sefo. And it was really good, mate. I really enjoyed your classes, your communication. Obviously your passion for jiu-jitsu really shines through when you're coaching too, right? Is coaching something that you've wanted to do, or were you sort of funneled into it a little bit?
I was kind of funneled into it. Rise, me and Cam, when Cam started off, it was only him and I. And as you guys will kind of see throughout this conversation, I wasn't a big talker. I was actually very shy at the start. And Cam just kind of threw me in with the kids class first and was like, all right, just slowly worked me up, and then eventually took on the adults. And I felt like the more he was forcing me outside of my shell, being uncomfortable, I kind of slowly enjoyed it, soon then came to love it. And then next thing you know, I'm managing all the kids classes, the intermediate classes with the adults, competing a lot, doing things like this as well. And yes, I was a little bit nervous, but I still feel like through the years, under the guidance of Cam, it's kind of helped me come out of it a little bit more, But yeah, I think since I started jiu-jitsu, I kind of knew I was going to do it for a long, long time.
No worries. So how did you start jiu-jitsu? Tell us.
How did I start? I actually was, I was in high school, 17, 16, and a really close mate of mine. We were still friends back in the day. I didn't know he was training jiu-jitsu, and I was an Islander boy, much bigger than most of the kids my age. And we were just wrestling, mucking around as kids do. And he was much skinnier, smaller than me, and he hit me with a hip throw into a knee ride into an armbar. And I was shook. I was like, this is impossible. This shouldn't happen. I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you. And then that same day, I spoke to him. He was like, what was that? What do you do? And he's like, I train jiu-jitsu with Cam. He gave me Cam's contact details. And that same night, I went and started training under Cam. I remember my first class was we're doing some guard passing or something like that. But as soon as I started, I don't know, I was hooked, training 5 days a week, doing the no-gi, the gi as well. And ever since then, just haven't stopped. I'm still pretty passionate about it too now, coaching and stuff like that. So yeah,
it's interesting how many people have that similar story of a smaller person messing them up as their entry into jiu-jitsu. That whole concept of how can this be, this smaller person can do these things to me. So yeah, it's good to hear that it's still happening.
I was listening to Kieran's and also Nino, just the same sort of origin story, bigger, tougher, realizing, oh crap, just because you're big and strong means really nothing actually. It's all about what's in your head. So
it helps a bit. I mean, I think personally, as a smaller person, I think when someone's bigger, it does help a little bit, especially at the beginning when you're kind of getting bashed a fair bit and everybody's got not a lot of technique, two white belts against each other. I don't know. My thoughts are that a bigger white belt is sometimes able to manage a bit better than against another white belt. But you're right. As you progress through, the strength is kind of less important, or the size.
As a Pacific Islander, were you born here, Sefo?
Yes, I was born in Sydney. Did rugby wasn't too, because I'm not a big islander too. I'm like 80 kilos, and all my cousins are, by the time they're 15, they're like 90 kilos. I never really got into the rugby side of things, but I did enjoy the contact sport. So I did rugby for a couple of years, and then I found Rise and the contact sport. I really enjoyed it. You know, the roughing up, the grappling, and I felt like the size thing we spoke about, it doesn't really play a factor. It's about, you know, technique and knowledge and applying all those physics and stuff. So really enjoyed that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And how old are you now, Sefo?
27.
So still young, still very. You're a baby.
I feel 50 from jiu-jitsu.
Wait till you're 50 and then feel how to see how old you're. What your first foray into a competition, mate? What was that for you?
Surprisingly, I lost every match. I think I had 5 fights. My first fight, I was too scared to open up and do anything. I think I stayed in his closed guard for the whole 5 minutes, and I was like, I didn't want to pass. He was trying to do stuff, but I was like, really like shook by the whole thing. And I like to tell this story, like, because guys see what I do now, I'm like, oh, you must have been amazing when you started. I'm like, no, I was terrible. Lost every match. I don't even think I like podiumed or did anything until like my 5th comp or something. But I just enjoyed it. Winning and losing wasn't as big to me back then as well. I just wanted competition experience, and I wasn't taking it too seriously back then too. I was just doing it for the sake of like, I want to get better at jiu-jitsu. And then when things started getting serious, like teaching, then I really was like, okay, like I want to win now. I want to try go interstate, maybe international and stuff like that.
Have you got any advice for people who might still be in that early stage with competition where, you know, they're not doing great, and how to get through that without sort of being too, it can be quite a demoralizing sort of phase, that the early part of jiu-jitsu, either like for competition or just in general, like training as well?
I think lots of reps in competition. And a good example, I have this student, this little kid. He's about 11. His name is Jackson. Even Carter Thomas, he's another guy. Like when we first started working together, he was just not doing so well in comps, and I was just like, you just like, the time will come where the penny will drop, and then eventually things will start to click. But the worst thing you could do right now is just give up over 1 comp or 2 comps just because it didn't go your way. You really just gotta like just keep persistent at it, keep constant at it. Don't let one loss, you know, or one bad comp kind of ruin your whole journey in a way. Yeah, I think honestly just hang in there, because it will, like me, it will start to become a positive, and you'll start winning more than losing. But if I had just given up over my first comp, who knows where I'll be.
Yeah.
Did you find from not even from winning or losing comps, but actively competing, are you sort of finding that translates into other things in your life? Like it gives you more confidence in different areas? Is there any sort of correlation there that you feel?
From competing a whole lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I do gain a lot of confidence knowing like from jiu-jitsu in general. I think the confidence probably from teaching as well. I can teach stuff that I'm confident that I know works and it's been tested and trialed in comps. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I like outside of jiu-jitsu, I think competing has helped, but I think overall just jiu-jitsu's helped me outside of jiu-jitsu. Like just the confidence I have that, you know, because back I used to be a really shy kid, but now I would say I'm pretty outgoing. Like I don't mind like being a bit nervous. Like now, I don't know. Yeah, if that answers your question.
We had this in my dog training business. We take students who are learning to become dog trainers, right? And we had this girl years ago, and her name was Lauren. And we would do a debrief at the end of every group class that we run, we'd do a debrief with the students, not the client, but with the students who were learning. And we would sit there and we'd always ask two questions. So what did you like? And then what did you learn? And they had to give us an answer. And Lauren was so quiet. You know, I'm like, mate, you need to speak up. Like, we can't hear you. Like, just tell us what you liked and tell us what you learned. And then it was something she really, really struggled with for a long time. And one day I turned around and I'm like, do you work somewhere? And this is how long ago it is, right? She's like, oh, yeah, I work at like Blockbuster. So it was a video store, right? So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a while.
Sefo wouldn't know about that if he's only 27, Brent. He's that's before his time.
Like history movies.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I work at Blockbuster. I'm like, what's your favorite thing? And she's like, well, in Blockbuster, we've got a fridge. And in the fridge, we have all of these Ben & Jerry's ice creams. And the Ben & Jerry's ice creams, they're just amazing. And my favorite flavor, and she just went on and spoke loudly, and the passion came through about like this ice cream that she really loved, right? And I turned around and I just said to her, I'm like, this passion that you have for like Ben & Jerry's ice cream, you'll discover that passion in something in your life. And then that passion will turn into you being able to speak about what you love.
Yep.
And then as you get more confident in speaking, then all of a sudden you'll be able to talk about other things that are of interest to you in a nice, confident way, you know? And I think that's really what's happening with you, Sefo.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Like, from like being pushed in through Cam to teach classes, public speaking, you know, going to dominance. Like, I was pretty nervous when Lincoln asked me, like, hey, can you teach for 2 weeks while I'm away? I was really nervous, but I think just over the years of gradually building up from the kids program to the adults program, now I'm venturing onto different gyms. It really, I don't know, I feel like it's been good little building blocks for me to slowly become confident, you know? So, yeah.
And linking in with Brent's story about the Ben & Jerry's, Sefo, I believe that you have quite a love of packet 7-Eleven burgers. Is that true?
That is true. In Thailand, after trials, I pretty much said for a whole week, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna eat burgers and just chill by the beach, and that's what I did for the whole entire week. Yeah, the burgers were cheap. It was good. It was yum.
Yeah, very good.
That's a research, man.
I do my best. I try. You heard it here first on Roll or Die.
How was trials? This is your second. Is that your second?
Yep.
How did you find this one? Because you had a really good run, Sefo.
Yeah. It was good. I think first match, I had 5 matches altogether. I won 4, lost the 5th. The first 2 were okay. I think I handled the stand-up pretty well. The game plan going into trials was to be on top. I wanted to work my passing, but then also to wrestle. I was heading down to Abbotsford with Dave Hart to do the no-gi and the wrestling classes there for the last 6 months prior to trials. Yeah, I honestly didn't think I was going to get that far. My last run, I only made it to the second round. And this time I was like, just get past the second match. And then also the mentality for this round was just take it one match at a time. I wasn't looking past anyone. I wasn't thinking of the next guy or the finals match. It was purely, I have one match, win, lose, or draw, take that on. Won it, next match. That's my only match I have to focus on. Yeah, and I think it definitely helped me kind of like stay focused. I didn't want to lose track of who this guy was, what their strengths were. Like, I just had to really lock in on that guy at the time. Yeah.
And was that the 77 kilo division?
Yes. Yep.
That's a really, really tough division, yeah. So 5th round, did that put you close to the semis?
I had to win 2 more for the semis. I was unlucky. I think out of the whole bracket, I was the guy that would have had to fought 7 times to win. but everyone else would have had to fought 6 or 5. So
Yeah, that also seems to happen a lot to Australians when they go internationally because we don't always have the ranking points to get the buys. So
yeah,
it sort of sucks. It means that often you end up like first round against, like the previous champion or whatever, just because we're always the lowest ranked or nearly
yeah,
always the lowest ranked person in the bracket. So yeah, IBJJF and other organizations give us some more comps so we can get some more ranking points, please. Yeah, they're
yeah.
not listening. They don't listen to us. I think there's not enough money in Australian Jiu-Jitsu, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Australia just
Australia.
yet for them to really give much more. Like they had, like IBJJF used to have a Sydney Open every year, but they've taken that away now. I don't know why.
That's right. I think the last one was before COVID, and then I spoke to Dave Hart about it a while ago, and then we were hoping it would come back after COVID, but I don't think it's come back since.
No. And I mean, I'm old enough to know they even had a Melbourne Open for a little while too that was meant to be happening.
Oh.
But yeah, it's just the Pan Packs now. And even last year, they only announced it like a couple of weeks before as well, which was terrible. At least this year, they've given us a little bit more notice, but it makes it difficult. So, especially for the black belts to get their ranking points up and everyone else. And Sefo, you also went over to No Gi Worlds last year, or was it Gi Worlds and No Gi Worlds, or?
Yeah, it was both. Yeah, gi and no gi.
Both? Yeah, tell us about that.
It was good. I went over 2 weeks before each comp just to get rounds in and also experience other gyms. Both times were the first time over to the US. It was good. Different training over there. I found it. I trained at AOJ. Yeah, it was good.
How was that?
It was intense. Got to train with a couple of the like Tynan. I got to do a round with him. A couple of the other champions in their weight class. It was good. Very intense. Obviously, with preparation of worlds, like they weren't given an inch. It was good though. It was good to experience what a high level grappler looks like and what they feel, so they can hopefully come back here and expose it to Australia or even just the gym. Yeah, unfortunately, so yeah, both times just got knocked out the first round. But yeah, like I enjoy the experience and all the lessons and stuff I've learned from it. Yeah, pretty stoked.
Awesome.
What things do you learn? Like, for me, I actually believe that even if you continue to win, there's lessons there. I don't think you need to lose to learn. I really disagree with that. I think if you're winning, there's a lot of learning that continues to happen. So when you do go up first round, I went over to the World Masters last year and we trained at Robert Drysdale for the week leading up to it after being at Atos for a few days. And Rob Drysdale turned around and he goes, you got to remember, like the half of people who turn up to this competition over the next, few days, half of those people go home day one. And it's a really sobering thought, right? But there are things that you can, learn when you win. There's definitely things that you can learn when you lose. So what are some sort of takeaways, whether it's when you go 5 rounds deep at ADCC Trials or whether you get knocked out in the first round of of Worlds, what sort of things are you learning from that, Sefo?
The biggest thing from trials, and I think also my no-gi worlds, is just being able to adapt. The biggest thing was like adapt mid-fight, let's say, fight match. Is I was really just too narrow tunnel vision into like I want to do this pass this way this time. And I think one of my matches, I was just spamming it, and there was no like. The guy knew what I wanted to do, and he just did one. He had like a low knee shield, and which was stopping me from stepping over the leg. But silly me, I'm just gonna do it again, and then again, and then instead of maybe changing the angle, maybe standing up into like a high step, like it's being able to adapt and consciously be aware of like what's happening. Is it working? Okay, it's not. Change it up and maybe come back to it. And I think that's something big from trials and also from Nogi Worlds that I should have just in the moment, I know it's hard. Adrenaline's going. It's the worlds. It's trials. But I wish I'd had more of a conscious effort to like change up the game plan and then maybe go back to it, or mix things up.
And what's your do you have like a routine or any kind of rituals for competition day? Like what's your typical prep look like, particularly on the day?
I used to be really like focused. I used to have like one specific routine, and I think I was listening to a podcast a couple of months ago, and it was saying like a routine, or sorry, before trials, and it was like a routine's like a cop out, like so. It was something along the lines of like, so if your warm up routine or whatever routine goes wrong, is that why you're gonna lose? And I sort of was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like all the preparation I've done for the last 6 months is going to be ruined by one set routine if I do it incorrectly. So then for trials and for other comps that I've done as well, is I've slowly started to loosen up with the routine, and I need to try and stay conscious of like how I'm feeling and just mainly get my mental correctly, because I'm physically ready. I've done the work. My body's ready to go. The only thing I can work on from today until the comp that day is probably just my mental side, is make sure like I've got my routine set in my head. I know my first three moves, whether I'm going to pull, whether I'm going to do a takedown, and just make sure that like, yeah, really my mental's right. And it sort of changes here and there, but I have a general like, just I like to keep to myself, maybe do a couple push-ups just to get the core body temperature up, and then start to just to visualize things. And it changes every time, but as long as I'm doing those three things, I think I'm pretty set. Yeah.
Do you sleep well the night before a comp? I've got this thing now, right? Like I'm nowhere near as experienced and haven't done as many comps as you guys at all, but now I've got this nice little routine the night before where I go to bed, um, I lie there, I close my eyes, I visualize like the very first part of the match, running out, slap hands, bump fists, uh, everything that just works perfectly, right? I go bang, 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 and win the match. I'm like, that's magnificent. And then the next part is when it goes wrong and then what I need to do. And then I go back and then I just go through the start of the match again. And then I'm like, cool, that's it. Now I go to sleep. And it takes me like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I find I generally sleep pretty well after that, right? But previous to that, I'd be like, oh, what do I need to do? What about that? What about this? Did you have anything like that the night before that you sort of think about? Or
I used to. And then I just started meditating. I like to just lay in bed, like a bit of visualization. And something I always tell myself, especially like big things, like last night, I was pretty nervous about doing this talk because I was like, okay, like how would I set myself up to have a good night's rest? So then what I usually do is like visualize it, or the comp. Be like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna walk through like the pyramid. So for worlds, I'll visualize myself walking through, go to the bullpen, weigh in, blah blah blah. And then like as soon as I get to the mat, then I'll like have a general idea of like my go-to plans. But then I always try and stop myself like going further, because I don't want to predict, oh, what happens if this happens. And then I tell myself like, you freaking out about it right now in bed, it's probably going to cause you more harm because you probably won't get any sleep. So you're better off like trying to like cool down, do your future self, which will be the comp self. Do yourself a favor, turn your brain off, because you'll thank yourself later tomorrow when you have a good night's rest. And I had the same thing last night. I was like, there's no point me freaking about this convo. Cool, like I visualize it. Okay, you probably do it at Rise. Talk to Kim and Brent, and then I just had to like cool myself down. There's no point freaking out because I'll wake up and I might be tired, and then the convo will be bad. Then I just kind of like just started meditating, and then fell asleep. So it was good. Yeah, I think
awesome.
meditation helps me a lot.
Wow, you guys, I'm meant to be the black belt here, but you guys seem to have it dialed in because I can tell you and to our audience, I do not sleep well the night before a comp, and I envy anybody that can do it. But I sort of, for me, I've just learned over time, I have to tell myself, like, it's one night. Like, that's not going to make the difference between, a good performance and a bad performance. Really, at the end of the day, it's more about what's happening in the weeks and months leading up to it rather than like that one particular night. So anybody that's listening who's a bit more like me, and as opposed to these guys who has a great night's sleep before comp, don't worry about it. Don't let that kind of affect your mentality the next day because, as I said, it's, I reckon, sorry guys, but I reckon more people don't sleep well the night before a comp than do, just because like what you guys are describing is giving me anxiety, like the idea of thinking through in my mind, like I'm walking in, then I'm doing this, like that. I want to not think about that before I'm falling asleep because that just spirals my anxiety off the chart. But yeah, I wanted to ask you too, Sefo, for people who maybe haven't had the opportunity to go to a big international comp like Worlds, for Gi Worlds or no Gi Worlds, how does that compare to the Australian competition scene? Because yeah, I've been to Adult Worlds, and I personally think if people can, they should try and go at least once, even as a spectator, because my experience with it was pretty amazing. But how would you describe it?
I would say I don't know. It's just another comp, really. It's just another comp. Probably the
You didn't
intensity.
find it super intense or anything? Because
I
I found it just like you could barely hear yourself talk sometimes. There was like bongo drums going, and
yeah.
especially when the black belts came on and stuff, like it was intense.
It,
Like the air felt really electric. Like,
yes.
not to say
Something.
it's not the case in Australia, but yeah, it really felt the level.
Uh, yeah. I don't know. Like it's you kind of need to be there and experience it. Like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
kind of feel the energy in the air.
yeah,
Everyone seems very stoic. What I
yeah,
found, everyone's. I'm sure they're not like that in real life, but it's a big comp. It means a lot to everyone there, and everyone's
yeah,
just locked in.
yeah,
But yeah, what I was telling myself on that day, I was like, it's just another comp. Give it
yeah, yeah.
100%. It's not, it is what
Yeah,
it
you have
is.
to. Yeah, otherwise you'll freak out. Like it's because it is quite a bit different. So yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Um,
interesting, I think, doing a competition like that. Like I've only done one, right, which was last year. But I landed. I can't remember quite what it was. I think I landed Tuesday and then competed on Saturday at the Will Machado gathering.
yep.
And I like walked into the gathering. I'm like, this is fun. So the feeling of like for me, World Masters, and then going to the gathering, like it really was night and day. As you say, like the intensity of some of the people competing at those events, it's just ridiculous. And like you said, Kim, like if you can get there, whether you're a competitor or a spectator, or you just want to like seriously, if you're a blue belt and you just want to go and have a crack, or you're like a 51-year-old blue belt like me, like just go to World Masters. Like it's a cool event. It's really good.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with what Sefa was saying. Like I think maybe because there's a lot of professionals in there. Even if they're sometimes blue or purple belts. So
Yeah.
for them, this is like their livelihood, I guess. If they can't maybe win, then maybe that it's going to affect their sponsorship or things like that. So I suppose that's also part of why the intensity at that.
I felt like, man, this is so much fun. Like, yeah, I was just like carefree. Was happy to
Yeah.
win, lose, or draw. I was like, oh, this is
No
so much fun.
pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's hard for us though in Australia because like we're just so far away from the rest of the world. So there's just so much money involved needing to get overseas to do those comps. But I think if possible, if people can afford it and can manage to get out there, I highly recommend it because it will just, as you're saying, kind of give you that perspective as well for Australian comps so that it chills you
Yeah.
out a little bit more because they aren't quite as intense usually, is what I've found.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you follow jiu-jitsu online? Like, do you sort of follow the high level competitors in the sport, Sifa?
Um, sort of more than MMA, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Is there someone for you who, like you said, that you sort of did around with timing, which is pretty cool? Do you have like a jiu-jitsu person who you're like, hey, I'd love to roll with this person? or like somebody in the jiu-jitsu world that you'd love to meet?
So many. I don't know how to start. I don't know. I would say like
Because you're really focusing on the no-gi sort of style now, aren't you?
yes, yep, yeah.
So that takes out like half of the people.
But I still like the gi.
Takes out all the good people, you know.
Yeah. I'm focusing more on the no gi, but I still train in the gi, and I still admire the gi athletes. I still follow them too. Like I probably I don't know. There's so many greats. I think I would like to maybe Tynan, even Lucas Slippery. He seems like he would or even what's his? Oh, can't believe I forgot.
All good.
Garcia?
It'll come to you later.
Wow.
It's
Yeah. Marcelo.
Yes.
Yeah, Marcelo. Yeah, he's a goat. Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Taking a track away from jiu-jitsu, I believe that you're also being responsible for breaking some toilets. Can you tell us about that at all, Sefo? I've got all the inside stories.
Yeah.
Is this
I might
Cam?
have given away my source
Yeah,
though by
this is
telling
Cam.
that one. So yeah.
It was the Nogi Worlds, and I think we'd competed that day. And what happened? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it. I don't know.
Yeah, say it. It's not. There's no rating on this podcast. It's not. No children listen to this one, so I think it should be good.
What was it? Me and another teammate of mine who competed. I won't say his name, but because Australia doesn't have it, America does, dispensaries, and we thought it would be smart. All right, we went to a dispensary, and then we had the product, and then we're watching a movie. I decided to go to the toilet, and then I don't know, something happened. I flushed it the wrong way. Toilet broke. While I was under the influence, I thought it would be smart for me to dismantle the toilet.
Were you trying to fix it, or you don't know what you were doing?
I had no clue what I was doing. But and then somehow we put it back together. It was working, but we all agreed, and it was on our last day of the Airbnb. So we were like, "No one use this toilet." We'll leave it as
And
it is.
no repercussions. The Airbnb didn't come back to question it or anything.
It was fixed.
That's lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Oh, you managed to fix it. Easy.
So for the jiu-jitsu stuff doesn't go too well going forward, like there's a plumbing career somewhere in there, mate, just in case.
Just in case, I've done it.
No experience, but I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for people who are, like I said, coming through, like maybe who might get stuck in a bit of a rut? You were talking about it earlier, how when you're coaching, it's really helped you to, loosen up and to be more confident in groups. Do you have advice for people who are struggling with their jiu-jitsu, whether it's in the early stage or, they've hit a bit of a rut somewhere along the line, because it does happen?
Yeah, I think honestly, just be persistent, and I think for me it was probably around purple as well. I think I listened to Kieran's one today, and it was saying like he didn't really develop a guard because he was a judo guy, top player, and I had the same thing. And I think forcing yourself to work on any errors in your game or any holes in your game. And mine was guard, and it went on for a while, maybe like a year, where I was just constantly forcing myself, okay, just pull guard, play off your back, develop this part. It will pay off eventually, but you just kind of need to stick with it. And yeah, probably that. Like if you can identify the holes and start to fill the gaps. A good source of like feedback would probably be your training partners. What I found it was going to dominance on the comp classes on the Fridays, because it's all competition guys. You get Link, Ivan, you get Dave. The holes will appear. You got the high level guys in that class. So if you're conscious enough to realize this went wrong, that went wrong, this went right, you can kind of start to have stuff to work on. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Hey, I think for me, it's one of the things that I'm trying to now get better at is broadening my game. like what I did in competition worked well for a period of time, but it's like, you've got to do the next thing, like you've got to try, like what else is there? And whether you're a guard player and you've got to now try to pass, or you're a passer and now you've got to try and play guard, like it's hard to do, isn't it? It's hard to pull the trigger and go, okay, stop doing that for a period of time, because you're going to suck for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard as well when you're a competitor too, because you've got to almost like accept the fact that you're going to suck, and it might affect your comp prep for that comp that's in X amount of time. Yeah, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I think during those period of like the blue to purple, I think I was competing every second weekend, and it was hard to actually grow if all I was doing was A game, A game, A game, A game. I had no time to work on my B or C game or playing off my back or other areas. And I think, like being a competitor, you don't want to lose. You just got to refine your A game. But I did find it was like it was cut short when I versed someone that could sweep me. And then I think I was in Sydney and I got swept and I had to play off my back for 5 minutes. And I felt like a fish out of water. And that feeling I had of panic and like anxiety, I was like, I don't ever want to feel that again. And then that's when it turned. I was like, I have to play on the bottom now to develop this area.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're nearly out of time, Sefo. So I hope this wasn't too nerve-inducing for you. It's been a really great conversation. Thank you so much for giving up your time. We'll have this episode out in a couple of weeks. If you could share it on your social media, that would be awesome for us to help grow our audience. Brent, you could do the wrap-up. I'll send it over to you.
Thanks. Anything else before we wrap up that you'd like to say, Sefo? Can people do you want people following you on Instagram? Do you like those sorts of things?
I don't mind anywhere. I think just thank you.
Where do we find you, Matt? What's your Instagram?
Sefo with 4 O's, SEFOOOO _ I should change that really.
Why?
Probably just thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
No, you're welcome.
Too nervy. It was fun. Just the chat. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we will, I'm sure, no doubt see you on the competition scene. What's next for you? Yeah, I forgot to ask this question. Yeah, what's on the horizon for you coming up?
Possibly going to Thailand to do the Asia Open in Thailand.
Yeah.
I think it's late August, and then Nationals as well. Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, if this episode is out before Nationals.
Okay, mate. Just go back to
Yeah.
Right, you enjoy those. That's it, guys. We're going to
That's it. All right.
Thank you for having a listen to this one with Sefo. It was a really good conversation. If you like the podcast, please like, rate, and share. If you're on your way to jiu-jitsu and you're on the bus, just maybe pull the speaker out and play it loud so everyone on the bus can hear it. Let them know that you're listening to Roll or Die podcast. Thanks for coming on, Sefo. Really enjoyed it, mate. Thank you, Kim, doing your homework as always.
Thank you. Thanks, Cam. Thank you. And you can find us on iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, all the podcast places. So, keep listening and keep subscribing. Thanks, guys.
Peace and love.